right. While we are waiting for other people to turn on their videos or audios, any thoughts, any wrap up to what we are doing so far? Anybody wants to say a few words? The Guardian was on to our character building stuff. There was a little bit of homework. Anybody did that? All right, Carmel, go ahead. Iman, tell us what you read.
Yeah, the homework was about the 3 things that Guardian talks about. So, like the first one was rectitude of conduct. So the first thing, Baha'u'lláh, which is it's an abiding sense of undeviating justice, and how we mustn't keep any prejudice against people from whichever race, caste, or religion they belong. And we're not supposed to raise our hands even if you're dying of hunger. He also speaks about righteousness and equity.
Yeah.
And
righteousness is justice, right? So, yeah.
And regarding chastity, Shoghi says that leading a chaste life as well makes our community more firm and stronger in the covenant, and how it should be made a main control principle in our lives of Baha'is. Chastity also includes being modest in our behavior, clothing, and thoughts. Another one was it rationalism?
Nationalism, yeah.
So,
nationalism, not rationalism.
Yeah, nationalism, and it talks about being faithful to the covenant, how we must look at others with loving eyes and not showing a prejudice to them, and basically you're supposed to treat everyone with equality.
Equal respect, right? So when we say every man is equal in the sight of God, is that the one who is more righteous is closer to God, right? So that does not mean that everybody needs $200 a month. We kind of misconstrue those ideas, and then society breaks down, right? When it comes to our social standard, social status, the Guardian was very clear, and he will talk elsewhere somewhere, that always would be different because our capacities are different. So the moment, like the 4 of us, if we have very different capacities, you might be able to become a CEO of a very big firm, and I just will stay a clerk all the time because that's all I can do. That's all my ability allows me. And that's okay, because we're not here to be CEOs or clerks. We do that because we need to make a living, right? Because that's enjoined upon us to make a living with your own hands for yourself. So whatever your ability allows you, through that we make a living, and through that we serve others, right? So even if I'm a clerk in a company and I'm always doing my job best and helping others, I'm still serving. The same best way I can serve as somebody on a very big rank or doing something very big is serving. That's their capacity, and this is my capacity, right? And it's a matter of capacity because of which we are not allowed to do a personal judgment individually, one-on-one, or if somebody is a good or bad person, so to speak, just because how we see that, because we don't know each other's capacity. Only God knows what my capacity is. So no matter, even if I'm a street sweeper, I can be exactly the same amount, I can achieve the same amount of righteousness and rank in the eyes of God, the way I do my job and the way I serve others and the way I conduct myself. Even if I'm a street sweeper here, which is maybe a lowest level of jobs, and even if I'm a king. So whichever it is, when it comes to being fair-minded, which righteous means, because we kind of started misusing that word, right? But when somebody says righteousness, as if you just sit there and pray all the time and that's what righteousness is. I mean, that's a part of it. When you sit somewhere and pray a lot, that actually brings you back to the path of action, to what God wants then. Hopefully we are cognizant then it's kind of a food, right? So you eat some so your body can have, your soul can have some strength and do the things God has asked you to do. So prayer comes under that umbrella, that it keeps me on the path. It keeps my memory alive, why I'm here. What is it that he has asked of me, right? So it's the food for the soul. But just sitting somewhere and praying day in and day out for years in and years out and doing nothing else, God abhors that. He's forbidden that, right? Because that's what asceticism is, that you just go somewhere in a corner and he doesn't want that. He wants, what did Abdul Baha say? The essence of religion is to serve mankind, right? So how do we serve mankind? We don't just go and give them some food or clean their street. We actually, whatever profession I'm doing, the Bob said, you are doing the best possible thing you can. So therefore, with your capacity to what you can create in this world, you are helping yourself, you're doing your livelihood, and you're helping others. You're helping actually the civilization to get to somewhere else, because you are fulfilling what your capacity has been given to do here. So yes, so righteousness then and rectitude of conduct is all of these things. Yeah. And then if you always remember to be fair, be fair, be fair in everything you do, everything you judge, everything you do, about for yourself or for others. And that is the best guiding light God has ever given us, because that keeps us from doing wrong things. Actually, it's a wonderful. So good. Iman, you had more things to say about homework?
No, I've actually written my own explanation, but I don't have anything to add.
Do you remember to just talk? That's fine.
I've written it here.
Yeah, you want to add something or say
No.
something? Want to say something like that?
Okay. If you want to send it to me, anything in written, that's fine too. So give it to me. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Solomon, Reshma, any thoughts? Isha, any thoughts? You have no thoughts?
No.
So, all right. So then it's in, by the way, and pay attention to the sequence a little bit too, right? The Guardian has already started with how we should learn to transform our character first. Remember he was saying, when he was saying transformation, my own transformation first, then my community, then my country, then my world, right? So he has started with my personal transformation first. And now he's gonna, soon enough, he's gonna teach us how to learn to teach. Yeah. So because even when, let's say you are the best acting person or best acting Baha'i, it still takes a very different sort of skill to go out and teach the faith. And we often don't gather the skill, actually. We just kind of flail around in the air, and then there is mostly hardly ever any success, right? So the Guardian will come, the Guardian is going to embark on that you have done all of these other things. You have tried, you have started to transform yourself. You have desired to transform yourself. That was your own job to cultivate, as the Bob said. Even if an ant desires, you cultivate the desire. You say, okay, I want to do this. I want to do the work of God, which is your own work, by the way, right? So we don't send him money, and he doesn't get touched by any of these things. He's giving us to do all of these things because that's what improves me here and hereafter, forever, for eternity. So I'm doing my own work, really, right? So then, now that I've embarked on that, and the primary duty by that Lord now is, always was, by the way, but this time it got written in the first paragraph of the Akdas. So the primary duty then for us is to teach others how to live with the rectitude of conduct. That's what you're doing by teaching the faith, yeah? So, and so another point is that, let's say when God says, and it's better to touch on it now because we might lose the opportunity, you can say, okay, all religions are teaching to be good, then why this one now, right? Have you ever thought about that? So we do believe in all of them, that they all came from God. They all have good stuff in them. Then why this? Why is your job to teach this one to yourself and to the world, or we won't move forward? Why? Right? Because the language of which every chapter of God has a bit of a different meaning because of our evolution and our needs, right? So same as if you look at a life of a child, when you use the word love and you love a 2 or 3 year old, that love is constituted on very different type of actions towards that child than when that child is 12 or 20, right? And then when that human being is now 30 or 40, you don't, even though we use the word love, but how you implement that love towards any life depends on the evolution of that life's age, right? Even within our own lives and our own families, then that same thing evolves the humanity at large as well. So when we said love somebody, and it meant that go just feed somebody and clothe somebody 2,000 years ago, when Christ said that, that is almost a very limited amount of love today's world, right? That thing is still necessary when somebody needs those, but it's a very basic thing now. That's not like the whole of your, wow, if you did that, then you'll be on top of your world. So much more is asked of us in the path of love for what love means, right? So we should be very, very cognizant of these things. So like in Islam, the love was that you make your brother do good things, right? That's been lifted. You can't do that. You can't force other people to do good things, right? You can't even stand in the street and preach to them. It's forbidden to you, right? So now that brother is not your duty towards, because all of you are brothers, a brother to brother duty or a sibling to sibling duty is very different than a friend to friend duty, right? We all understand that because we have friends, yeah? And in a sense, a love that you give to a friend is a lot more mature, by the way, because you allow them to be their own person a lot more than what you do at home. And yet you love them regardless of who they themselves are, because you chose them to have this friendship, and you love them very deeply. And yet you don't twist their arm every day to say, hey, you must get up now, or you must do this, or you must do that. Even when they commit certain amount of mistakes, you are a lot more flexible with the mistakes of your friends than you are mistakes of your siblings, yeah? So pay attention to this language. So why is it that God was calling we are all brethren to each other until last dispensation, and now he says we are friends to each other, right? Because now we have come to an age where if you try to be a sibling to everybody, it's actually very annoying. It's not even considered love anymore. Makes sense? So now we are mature enough that we are allowing each other a different type of space and time. So makes sense this example that the concept of love is changing consistently, right? Because we are evolving and we are growing. So 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, a parent was allowed to beat up the kid if they were wrong. But we are not allowed that anymore. Makes sense? That doesn't mean that those parents didn't love their children, or now we don't love our children, right? So if somebody will come and see us from 4,000 years ago, if they could come back and see us, they will think that we are very irresponsible, by the way, because we don't do any of those things they used to do. We do very different things. So even though consistently God is saying, love each other, delve into it, find out what that love means, right? So if he says, love thy neighbor as thyself, then that does not mean that you knock at their door every day and you straighten their lives. We can't do that anymore, right? It's a very different style of love now. Very different requirements are asked of you to do. So that's why now, because if you only kept on doing things that we were doing 2,000 years ago, we cannot build a new civilization. We cannot move forward. We actually end up despising each other. And that's what is happening in societies, by the way, right? So because like the injunction in Islam, in the Quran was that you do good yourself, and you always preach that to others, and you stop them from doing bad. Look at what has happened to those conditions of that community. Everybody chokes everybody, and they don't want it. They don't like it. So they're getting away from religion, in a sense, right? But they didn't need to do that. If we followed every one of them as soon as they came, we wouldn't have to walk away from religion. We wouldn't have to be mad at God. We wouldn't have to be all of those miserable things we do to each other, because he improves with our age and evolution for how should we deal with each other. Yeah? So there's that. So it's important that we teach, because the world needs to relearn how to live with each other, because we have lost that, because we're trying to implement things that are, to me, it's like one of the examples I use is like we're trying to eat the aspirin. We all have headaches, and we're trying to eat an aspirin that expired 10 years ago. Yeah. It's not the aspirin's fault. You need to get the new tablet. Yeah. You keep on eating the aspirin that is expired 10 years ago, you will have all sorts of aches and pains. You might even die, actually. It can kill you. And that's what we are doing with the in a sense, with the religion. We have evolved, we are grown up, but we are trying to implement the rules and regulations onto each other that were only good when we were 2 years old. And now we are 14 and 15. So that's why we are at each other's throats. And there's war and contention and prejudice and all those things that he's asking us to get away from. And we can't get away from them without knowing how to properly act towards ourselves and towards each other. And that's where the religion of God comes. He gives us that guidance, yeah? So, and it's not a formula. It's never, well, some things are dictated when it comes to laws, but most things are as a matter of principle. So when he says be fair, that's why the tools like he gives you to be fair under all conditions. It's a tool, it's a matter of principle. So whatever strange thing occurs to you, if you pay attention to that, you will be able, it's a guiding light, you will be able to act appropriately. Yeah. So, and sometimes we won't because we don't understand what appropriate is, and that's okay, because this life is given to us to perfect ourselves. That's why we are here on this earth, right? And we don't perfect ourselves. I mean, if you never commit a mistake, how would you ever perfect yourself, right? So, but we should not wittingly make mistakes, not make mistakes that you know it's a mistake and you do it. That's willful blindness. There is a different type of punishment for that in the book of God. So don't be willfully blind, but when you are actually trying your best, studying the scriptures, aligning yourself properly, trying to make the best decisions, then it's okay to have mistakes. Then he comes and helps too. And there are a certain amount of principles. If you keep that in your forefront of your head all the time, no matter what situation arises, you will be able to do a better decision. Right? So Guardian has told us all of that. And now we are coming, so because we need to teach, and we must teach. It's a duty imposed on every one of us by Baha'u'lláh himself, as soon as you're 15, yeah? Because that's when you become a Baha'i. So until then, you're learning where and how. And in my book, actually, all the kids should know all the major scriptures before 15. Because it's a mighty decision you make at that age. Would you want to make a lifelong decision without knowing what you're making decision for, just because your parents are that, right? It will be good for us if we actually studied and got to know what is it that is asked of us. But nonetheless, as soon as we turn 15, there are duties on us, and we must learn how to do that, and teaching is one of them. So let's start. We are...
1 minute, I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Since 1 week, I'm fighting with myself for this rectitude of conduct.
Yeah.
Of course, at this age, I am finding, it is my experience, that it is too late. But
too late for what?
Too late for rectitude of conduct.
If it was too late, you'll be dead already.
But still, I just want to know. As you said that
never too late, sweetheart. The whole life, the day you were born and the day he will take you, if you naturally went from here, which we call the tabai maut, right, the natural death, then that would be your last day of learning here on this world, in this world. All right, that every day we breathe and we are awake, we learn and we do better. It's our duty towards ourselves, because my soul and your soul is going to live for eternity. If anything, actually, in my book, I think you and I have more urgency. Those of us who are older here in this group, we have more urgency because we have lesser time left, right? So when these guys, when you're 9, 10, 11, they have a life ahead of them, even though we shouldn't think that way, because God says what? You can be dead next moment. Something can happen to you. You can be dead next moment. So always have that urgency that whatever time is granted to you right now is important. And it's funny because I often see that on social media where people say, oh, don't think about the past, don't think about the future, just be in the present. You know what Baha'u'lláh says? He says, always keep your eye on the future. Where are you going? Where are you going? Because you're going to live for eternity. And building your eyes and nose and lips and ears and hands and those kind of things is the rectitude of conduct. That is your hands and eyes and nose and ears. Are we willing to be born disabled in next life for eternity? That's a scary thought. And we must be scared of that, all right? Because God asks us to keep the end of your life in your head all the time. Think about this every day, right? Because our society doesn't allow that. They're like, don't talk about death. You know, don't talk about death. Don't talk about anything else. Just do today. No. How would you ever build your character if you did not realize what you did yesterday and where you're going? You can't really. You can have momentary pleasures right now and they will destroy you, but you cannot build a solid character without knowing where you're coming from and what did you do right or wrong and where you're going. What's your goal? Where are you going? We are going to live. My soul is going to live forever. Remember that every day. And there is a responsibility for that then, right? Why so much fuss has been created by God for thousands of years? So many messengers, manifestations of God killed and died for it, so they could teach us how to have this rectitude of conduct, because I need that to live for my soul for eternity. Yeah. So if anything, the older we get, the more urgent the matter is. Whatever we didn't accomplish, we must work harder to accomplish that. Yeah. Yeah, Rihanna?
So it is better to start this homework from the early age.
Yes, before you're 3, Abdul Baha said. Right? And the science follows that on that, by the way, right? The psychology, the science of psychology follows on that, that a lot of your ingrained habits get ingrained into you by the time you're 3. Okay? So it's parents' job to really train you from very young age, especially about the basic conduct, basic righteousness, fairness, justice. Those can be taught to very little children. When a very little child goes and pushes somebody, it's mother and father's job to bring them back, sit them down and teach them that this is not good and why it is not good. It's not a small thing. You let go on a lot of things that they get ingrained into our characters. Yeah. And Abdul Baha says that, and the science proves that already, that so then you have until about 15 to engrave good habits in your children. If they don't have that and they turned 15 already, he says it's well nigh impossible to change. All right. So, and you see that in the world, by the way. I have a degree in psychology. I see that all the time. After that, the person individual has to decide to change. Nothing else can change them. And it's a very difficult task. Even when they decide to change, it's very difficult for them to actually undo what they have, what they got inside them as a child. So the parents' job is a very hefty one, right? It's a very serious business, because we are creating beings that are going to be alive for eternity. And what they do here in this world, their eternity depends on them, on that rectitude of conduct. So no, it's never too late. Even, what did Baha'u'lláh say? Even at the last breath, even those of us who are absolute sinners and we turn to him at the last breath, the forgiveness is yours and help is yours then from then on. So that desire for inside myself, how do I want to conduct myself, is very, very important. And yes, it's best if it starts much early. But nonetheless, it needs to start before we leave here. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And actually, it's more for you and I. It should be actually, in a sense, a little bit easier too, because you have seen a whole lifelong thing, and that already has taught you in your own practical experience that what God is saying is right. Because whenever we don't do this, we suffer, right? Those of us who are, the older we get, the more we see this. So it should be easier for us to actually acknowledge that, and that when you acknowledge that and learn that and have the experience of that, it gives you the courage and strength actually to do the right thing. So, yeah. All right.
Hello. Hi.
Yes.
Just to tell something that really stuck on to me when I was in Haifa and I was in one of the workshops for the student classes. So Paul Lambert said, and it's very beautiful and very, very practical. He said that when you deal with your children, you think about what you want them to be 21 years from now. It's like typically what generally happens is, oh baby, oh kuchulu, oh cute, and you just get away with everything, right from what they do or don't do. They don't do the household chores, or how they dress up. We say, oh, the baby looks so cute in those very micro minis. I mean, you are training them to just feel comfortable in not doing their duties and in not wearing complete clothes. Sorry for the lack of words. But so we have to be consistently working on them, and it's a task. It's a quite arduous task, and the kids feel like we are the enemies sometimes. But I keep reminding them that this is, we have to keep doing the gardener's job of pruning you guys.
Abdul Baha said, introduce your children with hardship. Do we reflect on that, what that means?
Oh yeah, I specialize in that.
And that does not mean you beat them up. That does not mean you make their lives miserable. That same Abdul Baha said that your love for your child should be such that you just look at them with disappointing eye and they correct themselves, right? Just look at them with the disappointment and they will correct themselves because you love them so much. So all of these are, as I was saying, a lot of these things are not formulas. You can't do 1 and 1 and it gives you 2. It's not that way. It's a matter of principle. And then that same Abdul Baha says, every child in each household, you have 3, all 3 of them are different personalities. It's parents' job to look at that and then train them accordingly, right? The faith teaches you this, that you don't do an umbrella thing for all of them, because all of them are not the same. Carmel and Iman are very different. Suleiman and Reshma are very different souls. They have their own individuality, and parents know better what their individuality is, and you must have time to nurture them accordingly. Yeah, so the parents' job is all of that too, and give them tremendous amount of love, but a responsible love. You know, and not the fun spoiling love that they go in the wrong direction, but responsible love, but absolute deep love. Yeah, I mean, Shoghi Effendi was so loved by Abdul Baha that the world could see that. Even when he was 2 and 3, anybody who was visiting knew, could see that, what great bond of love was between them. And since he's our exemplar, we need to learn to emulate those things. So when it comes to dress code and stuff, I will disagree with Mr. Lampel a little bit, because Baha'u'lláh has allowed us different dress codes according to our cultures. So like what a little girl would be wearing here in America might be very sort of, whoa, in a Muslim background culture, a Baha'i girl is growing, or something like that. But we are not supposed to implement their values here, or vice versa, or whatever. So Baha'u'lláh said, what? It's open to you, to whichever way you want to dress up. Just don't be what? A playful thing in the hands of the ignorant. Yeah. So be decent according to whichever culture you live, whatever decency means. And when it comes to dress code and even interactions with each other, the code of decency is different, especially from east to west. So be very, very cognizant of that as well. That we don't end up being some kind of puritanical communities. So yeah, but you want to teach them how to live an independent life. That's how I will word it out. If you keep that goal, that you want to teach them to live an independent life, I think that makes all things. My dad had that goal, and he did a marvelous job at creating the trainings accordingly. So like my dad had a sort of a milestone sort of program. He actually did with all of us. It was like, okay, so when you're in 5th grade, you should be able to do this much work for yourself. When you are 6th grade, you should be able to stand up and do and be responsible for these kind of things. In our house, it was ruled that by the time you're in 8th grade, you should be able to clean, cook for yourself, and take care of another person if they were made your responsibility. You weren't made to do that. There was your mother who was doing that, and there were servants in the house who were doing that. That doesn't matter, right? He was saying that no, even if somebody is always doing this works for you, that's different, but you must learn how to do it, right? How to do it. You must learn this. And he lived and died a Muslim, but he was better Baha'i than most Baha'is I ever met, really. And those are the kind of things, when you dig deeper into it, the writings are teaching for how do we want to. Abdul Baha says another thing. He says, what a child outside takes a year to learn, a Baha'i child should learn that in 2 to 3 months. Yeah. And so that is how much? 4 times, right? 4 times better than anyone else. And this doesn't come from beating them up or like sitting on them and saying what grades and what not. If we actually, in my life experience, I've learned that if you properly love a child, where they love you back and they feel secure, and they love and they know that you are there for them and they're loved, their brains opens up and they want to do better things. So all of these things are important. The better environment we create in our family, the better environment we create between each other as husband and wife, it all affects them. And yet, at the same time, every child will have a different capacity. One might go all the way to PhD, the other one will want to do some other vocational work. All of that is okay. Yeah. Our job is not to teach them how much money they're going to bring in. Our job is to teach them which kind of righteousness they will want to have. Every single child can be just. Every single child can be righteous. That's what my job is to teach them. Everything else, they will have their own, they will have their own lives to live. They will have their own dreams. They have their own capacities. God has sent them here for something. If they pay attention to who they really are, then they will fulfill the puzzle piece that they are in this universe. And that's another thing that the writings teach too. Look for what your calling is and work on that. Right? I think Alicia did that. Her calling was make good pastries, and she's very successful at that. Right? She's a college graduate. She could have done many other things. She loved something. She went after that, and she's successful. She's doing it, and therefore she's serving herself, her family, and her community. Right? So it's actually is taught in the writings to for parents too, and for those of us who are friends with you, to look at children and see what is it that really triggers them. I mean, triggers not in a bad sense, but what is it that ticks you? What is it that calls on you, on your soul, that you feel like you really enjoy and you have the capacity for it? Nurture that. Nurture that thing and work according to your calling. The writings call for that. So there's a lots of guidance to how do we deal with ourselves or children or anybody else around. And if you can pay attention to that, it really, I mean, it straightens out life much better and less suffering. Anything else? Shall we start reading?
Thanks. Thanks so much, I'll read through every bit of it. Just to clarify, sorry, just for sake of clarification, the example of the clothes, dressing, dress code and all is what kind of I gave as an example for my
Okay.
own life.
Okay.
Yeah. So only said
It's not the example you use then? Yeah.
Just to clarify. Thank you. Let's proceed. Thank you.
The Guardian does speak about one of the very important aspects, that the children should be taught the fear of God. Fear of God and love of God is sort of intertwined in a sense, that the children should be taught that, and that keeps them safe in this world. That keeps us safe. So don't read up on these things and don't hesitate to inculcate in ourselves at any time, in any age. All right, so we were at we are starting at 72. Who goes first? Alphabetically, Alicia, I think, or Alicia, yeah. Go on.
So sad and moving a spectacle, bewildering as it must be to every observer, unaware of the purposes, the prophecies, and promises of Bahá'u'lláh. Far from casting dismay into the hearts of his followers or paralyzing their efforts, cannot but deepen their faith
And excite their enthusiastic eagerness to arise and display in the vast field traced for them by the pen of Abdul Baha, their capacity to play their part in the work of universal redemption proclaimed by Baha'u'lláh. We were already talking about this the past half an hour, right? So go on, finish the paragraph, then we'll talk about it.
Okay. Every instrument in the administrative machinery which, in the course of several days, or several years, they have so laboriously erected, must be fully utilized and subordinated to the end
for which it was created. Very important part. And subordinated to the end for which it was created.
The temple, that proud embodiment of so rare a spirit of self-sacrifice, must likewise be made to play its part and contribute its share to the teaching campaign designed to embrace the entire Western Hemisphere.
So you see lots of, Alicia and I were talking about this right before you all guys showed up, that once you get into practical life and you work hard, so much learning is done. And so much of the writings become alive when you actually are dealing with challenges on a daily basis, with yourself, with your employees, with your colleagues, with your neighbor, with your street people and whatever. As soon as you start living in appropriate life, all of this comes into being. And every day you think about, oh my God, if both these entities could be on this page, we wouldn't have this problem. Yeah. So in that light, whatever the world is suffering, it is suffering because we are not walking on the path of God, right? Ourselves included, by the way. When our own lives don't work well, it is because something is lacking, either in me or as an entity, as a family, right? Because you're not alone in here. So you could be an angel and there is 10 others who are just whatever, and it will bring you pain and suffering, right? And that's why it was important that majority of humanity comes up and does well. Because when others do well, I do well. And when I do well, others do well, right? Because we live upon each other, with each other. We are not in a vacuum. So the more you will study the writings and what my character needs to be, the more when you see the trouble outside, it actually does deepen your faith in Baha'u'llah's word, in God's word. It was like he knew it 178 years ago that these would be the troubles. And these are the troubles that we have as human beings. And he's cured for that. He's sent the cure. So we must have it for ourselves and others. Yeah. The other important parts, and subordinate to the end for which it was created, the Guardian talks about these issues elsewhere, that we often get bogged down to say, okay, so for example, institutions are created to take us to the Commonwealth and to the Golden Civilization. The institutions weren't created so we bogged down to say, I'm not here to live for the institutions. The institutions were created so humanity could live, survive, and get to the Golden Age. Make sense? So they're not an end in themselves. They too are the tools. The Guardian calls it that, right? So they too are the tools for us to get somewhere. And we must remember these things, because we are, okay, so I created this little class, and as if, you know, that becomes my end. But my class is a tool to get somewhere else. Yeah. So put things in proper places. He will talk about it quite often in his writings. All right, unless you have a comment or concern, next paragraph.
The opportunities with the turmoil of the present, with all the sorrows which it invokes, the fears which it
excites,
the disillusionment which it produces, the perplexities which it creates, the indignation which it arouses, the revolt which it provokes, the grievance it
engenders. The spirit of restless search. The spirit of restless search which it awakens must, in like manner, be exploited for the purpose of spreading far and wide the knowledge of the redemptive power of the faith of Baha'u'llah. Right? So it's a saving grace. People need to learn how to live. We're suffering because we don't know how to live. We have old tools in our hands that don't work anymore. Yeah. That's what the laws and regulations of all previous dispensation are. They're in a sense, they're old tools. You're building a very different type of building. You need a different type of screwdriver now. What you had before is not working. And because it's not working, you're suffering because your work never ends. You can't build it. That's why humanity is suffering. And God has provided new tools to us and told us to learn how to use them and teach others how to use them. That's simply what teaching work is. Yeah. All right, go on.
And for enlisting flesh recruits in the ever-swelling army of his followers. So
precious an opportunity, so rare a conjunction of favorable circumstances may never again reoccur. Now is the time, the appointed time. And it wasn't only in 1938. Now is the time, because reading it right now, right? If we didn't need it, this book already would have gone buried somewhere. It's until the next manifestation come, the work would be here with us at one level or the other. Go on.
For the American believers, the vanguard of the force of the most great name.
The vanguard is the line of army that is on the very front, the very first, right? So that's the American believers, which means what? The whole army of Baha'is globally is that army. Yeah. So all of us are together standing there to do these battles. One.
To proclaim through the agencies and channels of a specially designed administrative order, their
Capacity and readiness to rescue a fallen and sore tried generation that has rebelled against his God and ignored his warnings.
And to offer it that complete security which only the stronghold of their faith can provide.
So to me, just the vision actually just occurs whenever I read this, that if you saw somebody jumping off a cliff, I'm not talking about suicides. I'm talking about somebody's running and they don't even know it's a cliff, but you know there's a cliff. Yeah, they're running straight headlong to it. And they will fall and break their bones and die. Would you not hasten to save them? All of us would actually. You just would. It's a built-in urge. You'll do that. To me, teaching is exactly the same thing. Our souls are running off the cliffs in this world. And we must be able to present that there is other way of living. Next, the teaching campaign. Who's next?
The teaching campaign inaugurated throughout the states of the North American Republic and Dominion of Canada acquires therefore an importance and is invested with an urgency that cannot be overestimated, launched on its course through the creative energies released by the will of Abdul Baha, and sweeping across the Western Hemisphere through the propelling force which it is generating. It must,
I feel, be carried out in conformity with certain principles,
designed to ensure its efficient conduct and to hasten the attainment of its objective.
Right. So here it is why he's asking us to study that way, to prepare ourselves for teaching. The reason was given in this paragraph. Yeah. It must, I feel, be carried out in must be. It's not a suggestion. Make sense? You should do something is a suggestion. You must do is an order. We understand the language, yeah? What did the guardian say? When I insist on a thing, then I'm working as the guardian of the faith of God. Then I'm asking you at the center of the covenant to do something. Yeah? It must, I feel, be carried out in conformity with certain principles designed to ensure its efficient conduct and to hasten the attainment of its objective, meaning successful, yeah? If you want to be successful, we can all run and do the same thing, by the way, badly. But those who want to do a thing successfully will train themselves for it, yeah? I mean, all of us can go and bake a little pastry, but I'm sure Alicia will beat all of us to that. Because we can, I mean, to some degree it will be aidable, whatever we make. Yeah, but she's trained to do a professional work, and the difference is huge. Yeah. All right, so let's see what he's going to tell us what we must do. Who's next?
And told us to be excellent.
Yes, and he's telling us how to be excellent. He's going to show us step by step. You want to be transformed, excellent and knowledgeable, right? Because teaching is a hefty duty. Baha'u'lláh has given teachers our inheritance. That's how much the rank has been raised. Yeah, have you ever paid attention to that? In this dispensation, teachers, your spiritual teachers, have your inheritance. They're a part of inheritance. They're part of that, right? So it's a responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. How do we actually discharge it? Well, he's going to teach us how. So let's pay attention and get your notebooks ready. Who's next?
Those who participate in such a campaign, whether in an organizing capacity or as workers to whose care the execution of the task itself has been committed,
must highlight these, must as an essential preliminary to the discharge of their duties. Essential means integral, by the way. Without that, you cannot do something, all right? So that's why this paragraph is called the prerequisites of teaching, meaning if you don't have that, you cannot teach, period, right? Must, as an essential preliminary to the discharge of their duties, thoroughly familiarize themselves with the various aspects of the history and teachings of their faith, right? What are the two books that will do that? Let's name them.
The Dawnbreakers and
very good.
Kitab-i-Gan.
Yeah. All right.
And Kitab-i-Gan, sorry.
Okay. Kitab-i-Gan is our doctrinal work. We call it our doctrinal work. What is a doctrine? A doctrine is a verity of your faith, meaning what is it that your faith is? What is your faith? Do you know what your faith is? That's book. If you don't know that book, you don't know what your faith is. I mean, most of us know a certain amount because you hear it all the time, right? But if you don't really study that, you will never, I will promise you that. If you don't study that book, you'll never be a good teacher. Never be a successful one anyway, yeah? Okay, so Dawnbreakers, history and teachings. Dawnbreakers, Kitab-i-Gan, what's next? Teaching of their faith. In their efforts to achieve this purpose, they must study for themselves conscientiously and painstakingly. All right. He's not saying it's that you just gonna read through something and just take you 2 hours and you're there. No, it takes effort. You must make time, right? You must pay attention to how to study it. And everybody studies it a little bit differently, by the way, right? So what works for me might not work for Ariana, right? Ariana might be much faster than me in grasping certain things. It might take me twice as long time. You know yourself better. That's why he's using the word painstakingly, yeah? Know yourself better, but grasp it, devise the ways, whatever works for you, do it. Painstakingly, the literature of their faith, delve into its teachings, assimilate its laws and principles, ponder its admonitions, tenets, and purposes, commit to memory certain of his exhortations and prayers, master the essentials of its administration. All right, so the boot camp I created had the prerequisite lists. It had 5 topics in it that must be done, must be embarked on, all right? So it's your Dawnbreakers, your Kitab-i-Gan, the issue of the administration and the covenant, which is, there are a few pieces of the covenant that you must study to understand what that is, and the administrative system, and some answer question. The Guardian has made it on a very top priority list, all right? Some answer question. Why? Because when you're teaching out there, people ask you, okay, the Bible says this, what does it mean? The Quran says this, what does it mean? Where are we going? When we die, what happens? What do you mean by manifestation of God? What does that mean? All of these questions Abdul Baha has answered in there, right? 86 topics or 87. I have not looked at the numbers recently, yeah? So he prepares you. You learn, of course, yourself first, and then it becomes handy when you're sitting in a conversation and somebody asks you those questions, some answer question. And then this book itself, Advent of Divine Justice. Yeah, because Guardian said this should be your manual. Why? Because it teaches us how to learn. Without knowing that, it's hard to embark on anything. Yeah. All right. So, Farzana, let me steal this paragraph from you because most of it is like highlighting stuff, and you can read the next one. Master the essential, and there is a sequence of study as well that is being given here, by the way. We often do the opposite things, and then we often are not very successful, okay? So most of the time when you're doing little study circles or something, you reread, and then you start memorizing, right? But that's not what he's given here. You read, you reread, you study, you master, then memorize. Memorization without understanding the context of and content of what you're studying is waste of time. And when you throw things in the people's face because you have them memorized, but it's not showing in your character and you don't really get what the essence of that is, they see it too. And you just come out to be an idiot or just a preachy person. Yeah. So there is a sequence to it. Follow that. And I promise you, it will bring you success in studies and delivery. Right? So essential of his, they must strive. Okay, so here you go now. Master the essentials of his administration and keep abreast of his current affairs and latest developments. Right? They must strive, again, must strive to obtain from sources that are authoritative and unbiased. Unbiased. They don't have a prejudice against this subject. That's what unbiased means. A sound knowledge of the history and tenets of Islam. Right? The source and background of their faith is called our parent religion. We sprung out of it, yeah? It's called our parent religion. The source and background of their faith and approach reverently. All right? He's setting the mood there too, so you wouldn't be confused to say, oh, maybe he wanted us to know it so we could rebuttal it. No, we believe in it, right? And approach reverently and with a mind purged from preconceived ideas. The study of the Quran, which, apart from the sacred scriptures of the Babi and Baha'i revelation, Bab and Baha'u'llah's works, constitutes the only book which can be regarded as an absolute authenticated repository of the Word of God. The only book before our own scriptures that is the absolutely authenticated repository of the Word of God. They must devote special attention to the investigation of those institutions and circumstances that are directly connected with the origin and birth of their faith, right? Meaning we must know what happened, what was taught in Islam, how did it grow and where did it come? And because of those, then you have this now, right? That's when you actually get really firm faith in Baha'u'llah, and it's the wisdom of God's word, because how beautifully it's building on what we had before that was successful and what we had that we didn't succeed on. And he took care of all of that. Make sense? In this faith. With this station claimed by its forerunner and with the laws revealed by its authors. Right? So I would say really, really read and memorize this paragraph. So you will know your duties and how to obtain them. Right? So there is prerequisites of successful teaching, and that's all of them are in this paragraph. Yeah, history, doctrines. What is our administration? Our administration is quite unique and very different, by the way. There is not much of it that existed before. Study of Islam, study of the Quran, and the gaining the knowledge was Dawnbreakers, Kitab-e-Gan, some answer questions, covenant. There is 4 portions of the covenant. You have Will and Testament of Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, Kitab-e-Aqdas, and the Constitution of the Universal House of Justice was mostly revealed, most of the administration to you. And then Advent of Divine Justice itself, he will add that in another place. And there you are, your work is cut off for you, right? And all of this, by the way, if you sit together and study it every day, we can do it in 2 months. If you can't take off 2 months off and do this, which lots of you do have that, summer vacations and stuff, as those of you who are in school, if you embark on it on your own, it would not take you more than a year to get all of this done and done well. I'm not talking about just reading through, right? I'm talking about mastering. Mastering was read, reread, write it down somewhere for yourself, please. Read, reread, then study. Studying is different than reading, right? We're not reading this book through right now. We're studying it because we are delving into what it means. We are getting to know it, right? We're getting to know the content of this book is study. Then master. So if you memorize this paragraph, that will come under that mastering first, to understand what it needs for you to be done. Master, then memorize. But we are not memorizing this for for teaching purposes outside. This memorization is for my own self, so I remember what I need to do. But certain exhortations, certain things that are in the writings, it's very useful to have them memorized because they become useful when you're teaching. You can't always pause somebody who's asking you questions to say, oh, let me run and go check it somewhere, right? If you're a good teacher, you know these things here. You can incorporate that in your discussion and talk that you're having with somebody. Yeah, that's why it's important.
Memorization of hidden words are important.
Yeah. I mean, if I could, I will want to memorize the whole Revelation, but not my capacity. No. And why hidden words, by the way, if you could memorize them, there is no situation in teaching work that arises that is not a connected hidden word to it that you can use. And both Abdu'l-Baha and the Guardian has said that try to use the pure language of the scripture when you're teaching. I mean, we paraphrase a lot, of course, because our capacities are lacking and stuff, but whenever you can actually produce that and say it, in that scripture itself, there is a power that touches heart. So of course, paraphrasing is the next best thing. You should know the content and be able to teach it, but it's been said in our writings, and I witnessed as an experience that when you actually can produce a paragraph from the writing, then quote it, quote unquote, it has its own amazing efficacy to the hearer that you're engaged with. So we're asked to use that as much as possible by your capacity. Right? And there's no other way to do that but to memorize things, by the way. Or you study them so much that you remember them, whichever way. Memorizing too, by the way, don't let somebody else hit your head. Everybody has a different way of doing things. Remember that always. Find your way. If you don't know what your way is, find your way, use it and do it. So both of you sisters might have very different ways of memorizing something. So just because one can do one way doesn't mean the other one actually can as well. And it's in a lot of sense, it's not bad or worse. It's just we're different personalities. Just find your own strengths and use that. All right, 76, whose turn? By the way, on this paragraph thing, because it was coming up, at some point we need to discuss if you want to continue study, what's next. So because the Guardian asking for it. Go on.
Auntie, what about the study reading of the Kitab-e-Aqdas?
He has not put there, well, in simulating and knowing the laws would mean that, yeah? The Aqdas is included in there. But there was, so what happens is when you actually embark on the teaching work, the 5 books I'm talking about or works does not mean that you stop there, but that gives you a real good glimpse of everything and gets you onto that road. As a Baha'i, my job is to study everything Baha'u'llah has given, right? And as soon as I become 15, following the laws become my duty. How would I follow something I don't know? So I must study those, yeah? So I must study everything, but there are certain things that are absolutely mandatory if I want to go out and teach anything, yeah? So for example, if you want to go just even talk to a classmate, you have to start with who the Bab was. You have to tell him that. What happened to him? Yeah, who the Bab was, what happened to him? That's your history. What did he teach? That's your teachings. Then what followed after that? How was he killed? How did Baha'u'llah come to being? What is Baha'u'llah's story? And then what did he teach? That's what the common basic stuff of teaching is, yeah? Through that discussion, within 15 minutes, you will embark on why now? Why this? Why this works and nothing else works? So what would you do then? You'll be talking about the laws and its principles and how do we live life and what God says would unite us. What is it that we need to do and what is it that we don't need to do, yeah? That's what God is teaching. All of that will come immediately within 15, 20 minutes of talking to somebody. And if you don't know what those things are, we get lost or we say something that is not really inspiring, you know? So if you just say, oh, well, he says that unity is important, we all should be united. Somebody will stand up and leave. If you're teaching me that, I will stand up and leave, right? Because I had terrible things and it happened to me and terrible people I've seen. I'm like, what the hell do you mean I should be united with them? You must understand what that unity is and present it from that angle, right? So rather than saying we all must be united and get up and leave, what do we say? God is teaching us that we are all one people. We must love each other. We do commit mistakes, but we are ignorant. We cannot have prejudice towards this, that, or the other type of people. It doesn't matter if somebody's poor or somebody's dark or somebody's light. All of those things, right? Those are points of unity. You're taught how to eliminate that you will have unity. If you're talking to me that way, don't you think I will actually sit down and listen? But if you're trying to use those same things as some kind of slogans, because there's so much slogan out there, I'll just say whatever. Yeah. If you say, oh, we all would be united, I'll say, yeah, sure, we will be all united. But if you dissect it to say what steps do we need to take, and that will bring unity, then if I'm a sane person, I can see that. Yeah. If you say India and Pakistan should be united, nobody listens to you. But if you dissect it for why that is important and what can we do for each other to be united, they might hear it. Yeah. So all of these things, if you study these books, that's what you get. That's the juice is. What is it that will get us there? All right, whose turn? Is that all, Mira? Does that answer your question, hon? All right. Next.
Yeah. Having
acquired in their essentials, all right? Acquired. So now he's assuming that you're already done this work. He's told you what to do, and now the guardian's saying, okay, now you've done that. Now what? Having acquired in their essentials. Again, essentials is an integral part of a thing. Without that, you cannot do that thing. These prerequisites, all right? These were not my words. These are prerequisites. What is prerequisite? If you go to college and you want to do math, here in US, for example, you do first year college, it's math 101. If you haven't done the high school math, they will not let you attend math 101, okay? If you think that you want to take math 102 because you're really great at that, they will test you on math 101. If you can prove that you already know the level of math 101, they let you take 102, right? That's prerequisite. Without accomplishing the prerequisite, you cannot get to the next stage. Make sense? So teaching work is the same. Without doing the work in the past paragraph given to you, you cannot be a successful teacher. All right. Success in the teaching field. That's why I was saying we all can do things, but we do things badly. What he's saying is if you want to succeed in those things, then here's the work. So again, we shouldn't be dismayed by these things. Would I want to teach for 10 years and not have a single person who comes to Baha'u'lláh and be frustrated about it? Or take time and diligence for a year, just a year, and get really good at it? The 9 years are left for me to actually do good work. Make sense? All right. These prerequisites of success in the teaching field, they must.
Whenever they contemplate undertaking any specific mission in the countries of Latin America, endeavor whenever feasible to acquire a certain proficiency.
Acquire a certain proficiency in the languages spoken by the inhabitants of those continents.
And a knowledge of their customs.
Their customs, habits, and outlooks. Their customs, habits, and outlooks, and their religion, of course. Wherever you go, whoever you're teaching, your own country, in India, if you're teaching it, you must know if it's a Muslim or a Hindu or Sikh, or which type of Hindu and which type of Muslim and which type of Sikh. And what do they believe, right? And without that, we cannot teach them.
The teachers going through those parts of the Baha'i referring in one of the brackets of the divine grant of the Central American Republic at Eastern.
Must
also be familiar with the Spanish language. A party speaking their languages, who in another tablet has written, must turn their faces to and travel through the three great island groups of the Pacific Ocean. The teachers traveling in different directions to further states
must know the language
of the country in which they will enter. For example, a person being proficient in the Japanese language may travel to Japan, or a person knowing the Chinese language may listen to China and so forth.
Make sense? how else you would communicate? I've unfortunately seen several people who claim to be pioneers in China and could not speak a paragraph of it. Like, what are you teaching? All right, next. Is it my turn? I just read the previous paragraph, so whoever's next, I think it's Hari. Yeah. No participation.
Participator, no participator in this inter-American campaign of teaching must feel that the initiative for any particular activity connected with this work must rest solely with those agencies, whether assemblies or committees, whose special concern is to promote and facilitate the attainment of this vital objective of 7-year plan. It is bounden duty of every American believer,
bounden duty of every American believer, and the House has said, of course, every believer on the globe,
as a faithful trustee of Abdul Baha's divine plan, to initiate, promote, and consolidate within the limits fixed by the administrative principles of the faith any activity he or she deems fit to undertake for the furtherance of the plan.
any activity he or she deems fit. Individual initiative always was promoted by God. He or she deems fit to undertake for the furtherance plan, but it must be within the writings and its limits, right?
Neither the threatening world situation nor any consideration of lack of material resources, of mental equipment, of knowledge, or of experience, desirable as they are, should deter any prospective pioneer teacher from arising independently and from setting in motion the forces which Abdul Baha has repeatedly assured us will, once released, attract even as a magnet the promised and infallible aid of Baha'u'lláh. Let him not wait for any directions or accept any special encouragement from the elected representatives of his community,
Nor be deterred by any obstacle which his relatives or fellow citizens may be inclined to place in his path.
nor mind the censure
of his critics or enemies.
Be unrestrained as the wind. Is Baha'u'lláh consoled to every would-be teacher of his cause, while carrying the message of him who had caused the dawn of divine guidance to break. Consider how the wind, faithful of that which God had ordained, bloweth upon all regions of the earth, be they inhabited or desolate.
Desolate. Neither the sight of desolation nor the evidence of prosperity can either pain or please it.
It bloweth in every direction as bidden by his creator. And when he determined to leave his home for the sake of the cause of his Lord, Baha'u'lláh in another passage, referring to such a teacher as revealed, let him put his whole trust in God as the best provision of his journey and array
himself with the robe of virtue, rectitude of conduct, which he already taught us what needs to be. Array himself with the robe of virtue. If he be kindled with the fire of his love, if he forgoeth all created things, the word he uttereth shall set on fire them that hear it. Yeah. So transformation, I transform myself as the best of my capacity. That does not mean by by the way, that we don't consistently commit mistakes. It makes sense? Transformation does not mean that I have become, perfection belongs to God. We'll always have things to improve while we live in this world. But I'm always cognizant of that and always willfully trying to improve myself on the path that is being taught to me in the writings. Make sense? That's what my job is. The more I try on that, the more help I get too from God and Baha'u'lláh, and I get better. So I've started on that. I'm doing that. And then I learned from the Guardian what is the prerequisite amount of knowledge to have to be able to teach. So I make time to gather that, right? Make time to gather that. And then I embark on it, embark on what my soul guides me, where to go and how to teach, right? My personal duty, all of us, and individual's personal duty. You decide what you want to do. Of course, if you decided to already get married and now you are with a family, then the whole family will have to decide, makes sense, because you can't just, do whatever. So there those restrictions come from the writings as well. And hopefully, like we were talking in one of the last times, if you chose your spouse appropriately, looking at everything, then you will be always on the same page, right? So whatever else we might have little this or that or the other, maybe I get upset here and there, or he gets upset here and there. We have never had difference of opinion how the faith needs to be served for 25 years. And the question was asked to Abdul Baha, and he says, you must love God first. If you can do that for yourself and find the one who does the same, your path will be aligned, right? So there are those restrictions. So when we talk about a loss of individual initiative, of course, that doesn't mean that you dump your children or, you dump your husband or wife and do whatever. So you need to work on all of that and go there. But as long as you're individual, you are alone, single and alone, yeah, you decide how and where and do it. And he's asking you not to let anybody hinder you, yeah? All right. But that doesn't mean that you ask your parents for money and go it too. That will come soon too. You need to be self-sufficient. You need to have a profession. You need to be able to get your own living and work on it. All of those things are integral and important. Make sense? Okay. Go on. Having on his own initiative again, and undaunted.
And undaunted by any hindrances with which either friend or foe may unwittingly or deliberately obstruct his path, resolved to arise and respond to the call of teaching. Let him carefully consider every avenue of approach which he might utilize in his personal attempts to capture
the attention, maintain the interest, and deepen the faith of those whom he seeks to bring into the fold of his faith, right? So 3-part thing, we must always, it's our duty to do this, right? So you need to decide how and who to attempt to approach, how to teach, and then how to deepen them. That will come if they actually became, all right? So that's why Abdul Baha says that the people who become Baha'is through you, whoever is teaching, when you successfully taught somebody, they are your spiritual child, right? They're your spiritual child. You're responsible for them until they get on their own feet independently, which means during that time, you are consistently deepening the soul, where now they can take charge of it themselves, right? You still stay their spiritual parent, but your duty is released and you can start working on the next one. Make sense? All right.
Let him survey the possibilities which the particular circumstances in which he lives offer him.
Right. So again, usually wherever you live, you look around and you decide what is it that you are capable of doing, which kind of friend you want to make, right? Find that, focus on it, and do it.
Evaluate their advantages and proceed intelligently
and systematically, not just run out somewhere and I call it vomiting, We don't just go out and vomit the stuff out. That doesn't work. It stinks. So you sit back and make a plan. You have 5-6 friends, who is a little bit more inclined inside towards God and spirituality, right? So you wanna get them a better gift. but then you know their personality, you know how their limitations are and how your limitations are. If you have gathered that whole basket of knowledge in your head, we don't need to vomit anymore. You will know exactly which side to pick up, what to say, that's why wisdom is called for, right? So according to them, you love them and you know them, and it's for their benefit that you're doing this, not to put a badge on your shoulder. You'll always be careful how you teach, right? So that's all on you, systematically. Go on.
To utilize them for the achievement of the object he has in mind. Let him also attempt to devise such methods.
I'm saying that the object he has in mind, the guy or the girl who's deciding to teach, not somebody else's object. Make sense? They might have brilliant ideas, but they can't teach for me, right? I need to teach and I need to decide how. Go on.
Association with clubs, exhibitions.
So here's the guardian giving you a list. Please make your own as well. Add whatever else you can add. But it's giving you a guidance to where you can find. For me, for example, personally, I love religious and religious studies. I teach religion at university. So I get engaged with interfaith councils because that's what grabs me. You know, if you are into women's issues, go join that. If you are into, you know, entrepreneurs and stuff and all that, like Alicia, go join that. Teach the better principles of there. Whatever gets you, right? So he's giving you a list and it's a sampling. So this is really a good guidance. I actually built my whole teaching work learning from the guardian in this book, in Advent of Divine Justice. This has always worked, right? So make a list, put this list on your paper, add whatever else you think is out there, pick something for you that you're good at, right? If you're enthusiastic about something, that's half the way work done already, by the way, when people hear you. So get engaged with that really, really kind of speaks to you here. And then find people there. Go on.
Society's lectures on subjects akin to the teachings and ideals of his cause, such as temperance, morality,
social welfare, religious and racial tolerance, economic cooperation, Islam and comparative religion, or participation in social, cultural, humanitarian, charitable, and educational organizations and enterprises.
Which, while safeguarding the integrity of his faith.
Safeguarding the integrity of his faith is very, very important. Right now, we get embarked on lots of social media issues, and we start embarking on whatever the world is doing. That's not what we are here for, right? We go to these places and we can't steer things if we don't know where it needs to be steered, right? Because the world is running and they're trying to achieve something. Your job is to go and steer them in the right direction. They're kind of already partially there, right? So if it's a women's empowerment society, they already know that this needs to happen, but they don't know how. A lot of places you go and now they want to teach you hate for men. That's not what the faith teaches. Make sense? So if that triggers you and if that talks to you and you're really good about that, then you go in and you slowly bring those discussions on the table, right? You lovingly bring things that on the table that no, my father is a man, yeah? My brother is a man, my husband is a man. I love these people. My friend is a man, I love them. We can't just turn around now and hate people because we want to bring women up. It's just a matter of teaching that way, right? Discussion. Proving your points, getting people change their mind and doing better. Make sense? So whatever out of these works or any other work, but it has to be within the teaching, how God teaches. You can't go and join a pot society to teach them how to do drugs. Make sense? Because that's not within the line of the faith. Yeah. You can't go and join a society to say, okay, let's all of us start painting nude photos of people. That's not with the purview of the faith. We don't, yeah, there is a set of people that are doing those things, but makes sense. So it has to be within what we are about, what God wants. And then there's 1,000,001 things in the world. Pick one and do it. You'll make good friends over there too, because people, when you can have friends who are able to discuss the similar things you're interested in, your friendship grows much faster and deeper too. So you, for your own self, you'll find better friends in those kind of areas as well, where you are interested. Go on.
Will open up to him a multitude of ways and means whereby he can enlist successively and the sympathy, the support, and
Ultimately, it's right. So again, systematically, there is an approach. So when you first start talking, let's say they are a women's society and they're all very much feminism, type of feminism that are becoming these hateful of men stuff. And you're sitting and you're making friends and you're making sense for what you're saying. And you're saying, without men having with us, we cannot actually do this success. We still have to be families and we still have to raise our children. We still have to be friends with each other. Without having this peace and friendship between both sexes, you cannot succeed any one of them. That's what the atrocity of the older time was, because there was so much segregation and lopsided dealing with one or the other side. We cannot continue that. So when you start making, lots of them will come to your table because it's genuine, it's rational, it's logical, it makes sense. Yeah. So you have what? You got on their sympathy first about your ideas, whatever else you're teaching out there. You got the sympathy, then you got their support. Once you start engaging and becoming friends, they will, because you're still doing the cause, right? The cause you embarked on together, but you're doing it better. So then you made friends, you got support. And then what? Ultimately, hopefully, now you're expanding. They don't just talk about women's issues. As soon as your ideas are different and you are different, which Abdul Baha said, right? As soon as you enter the city, they should know you're a Baha'i. So if you actually are Baha'i, you don't have to announce it, by the way. We're not asked that. He was not asking you enter and announce that you're a Baha'i. He was saying they should find out that you are, because your character is so different. Your outlook is so different from other people. And it's so much more loving and rational and logical. And they will come. And now you're talking about all the other sides of the faith too. Hopefully, many of them out of that will become Baha'is, right? So you got their sympathy, you got their support, then you got their allegiance. Then what?
The allegiance of those with whom he comes in contact. Let him, with such contacts being made, bear in mind
the claims which his faith is constantly making upon him to preserve his dignity, right? We don't start playing foul just because now people are listening to us, or to get their allegiance, we do wrong things, or spew out wrong ideas just to please them. No. The wisdom calls for it that if the moment arises that maybe if you said this will actually trigger something bad and it shouldn't happen, then quietly go home and find for another opportunity to say the right thing. But don't ever do the wrong thing, right? Don't ever just try to please the people and do or say the wrong thing that God doesn't allow. Always remember that. The faith's integrity must be kept intact, right? And stationed.
To safeguard the integrity of its laws and principles, to demonstrate its comprehensiveness and universality, and to defend fearlessly its
And to defend fearlessly its manifold and vital interests. Let him consider the degree of his hearers' receptivity and decide for himself the sustainability of either the direct or indirect method of teaching. This thing became a huge debate in past few decades. Half of them want you to do this, the other half want to do that. And every time somebody says that, I bring them to this and remind them that it was left to the individual who's teaching. Somebody else cannot dictate you. Why not? Because they don't know the person you're going to talk. They don't know their situation. They don't know what condition you will be in when you're sitting to that person and how to decide what to do. Whenever you choose one or the other side of teaching, just as a formula, half the time you'll fail. Yeah. And you'll be lucky if half of those people are actually that way. What is direct teaching, by the way? Anybody knows? What is direct teaching?
Talking about Lord Bahá'u'lláh.
Direct teaching is directly just spit it out. New faith has come. Baba and Baha'u'lláh is this. This is what they teach. That's direct teaching. There are opportunities for that. I've had many. But there are times when that's not the good idea. All right? So because the main purpose is to bring a soul to the reality of God's word and his guidance. If we remember that, then we will act accordingly. if me saying that will make them run to the hills and will never listen to me again, then do you want to do that? No. Because you're still concerned with this soul that maybe they should learn something. Then what happens? Let's say we're sitting down and they're talking about war, or they're talking about hate for India or Pakistan, we're sitting there, right? Whichever country you're sitting on, or they're hating America or whatever. You can talk from that principle and angle. How human beings are, okay, so, you know, somebody says, I'm like, well, I'm not a politician, right? So when you go in the countries, all countries, people are really sweet. I mean, all of them are same kind of people. We speak different languages, we eat different food, but you make friends, they have the same sort of, you know, same sort of pain and sorrow and suffering and happiness and all of that. You can start from there. That's indirect, right? You're teaching them the unity of mankind, but you're not bringing in directly the quotes of the faith or the names of the faith. Make sense? So those are two distinctions between direct and indirect. There are lots of times you will have to just talk about principles, different teachings, you get engaged, people like what your ideas are slowly, and then sooner or later at some point you have to tell them who the Baba and Baha'u'lláh is without actually having allegiance to them. They cannot be, they don't have allegiance to God. So you'll have to bring that up, but that's left to you to decide, right? There is a time limit if you pay attention to that in a sense. Not that that is rigid, by the way, but like Abdul Baha says, each one teach one per year, yeah? If we are systematic about how we are, whom we are made friends with, well, like, and plus he says you must be friends with them before you teach them. So if you do that, your systematic ideas will be pretty clear to what do you need to do to actually be friends first. And then once now you are actually friends and trust each other, how to go by and how to then introduce what. Make sense? If somebody already knows of you are Baha'i and stuff and you're in that kind of situation, then direct teaching is much easier because they already know. So you say, okay, you know, they know you're Baha'i, they're okay with that. You say, well, Baha'i faith teaches this, Baha'u'lláh says this, Pop says that. It's easy to quote those things. But if they're not that way, then you need to be careful how you teach. In a lot of Western countries, it's actually a lot more taboo to talk about religion than anything else. So you have to be more careful to how to bring in the principles of the faith and how to engage and have those conversations. Make sense? So everybody has their own situation. Go on.
Our conduct and body language is also important.
Well, that was under the rectitude of conduct. Remember, the guardian is assuming you already mastered that. Yeah? So that's where we started there. Rectitude of conduct came first. Through that, my transformation. I already have clean language. I'm a clean person. I'm a fair person. I'm a loving person. I have no prejudice in my heart. And I'm very knowledgeable. Right? I've done all of those things already according to these musts. I'm very knowledgeable. I'm very knowledgeable of my own faith, and I'm very knowledgeable about the person I'm teaching. I know how they feel, what they think, what language they speak, what culture they come from, what religion they believe. I have all of that. All of that is already prerequisite, and I've achieved that. And now I am in actual seat where I'm teaching or making friends and teaching. Make sense? Systematic. The guardian said, be systematic. So develop in these things inside yourself. So let's say right now, halfway through, you have a friend and you really want to teach, then get on those things. Study about them. Study your old self. When you know what their concerns are, go and study the book and find the answers first. Be knowledgeable about it. It can be done in various different ways. Yeah, that must be done. Go on.
Whereby he can impress upon the seeker the vital importance of the divine message and persuade him to throw in his lot with those who have already embraced it. Let him remember the example set by Abdul Baha and his constant admonition to remember to shower such kindness upon the seeker and exemplify to such a degree the spirit of the teachings he hopes to instill into him, that the recipient may be spontaneously impelled to identify himself with the cause embodying such teachings. Let him refrain at the outset from insisting.
Somebody has asked about the akdas, right? That is for ourselves to study and follow. That is not so we can shove those laws into other people's faces. We become very puritanical about these things often, all right? Let him what? Let him refrain at the outset, meaning at the beginning, from insisting on such laws and observances as might impose too severe a strain on the seeker's newly awakened faith.
And endeavor to nurse him patiently.
Nursing patiently, tactfully, and yet determinedly. That does not mean we are telling them that they can just let go of it and forever not follow the faith or the laws, but you must strengthen their love for the word of God, by the way. All right. If you can do that, first of all, you cannot do that if you don't have it yourself. Right? Abu Bakr said, poor cannot give to the poor. That was not about money. If you don't know what we're doing and we're not transformed, we cannot give this to anybody. Right? So when you have that, they already are inspired that you are doing it. Right? So slowly at some point, if you can have that love transfer to them and make them fall in love with Baha'u'llah, meaning the word of God, they will want to follow his advice. They will want to follow his commandments, right? So my job is to inculcate that want in the person, not by imposing it, by them voluntarily wanting to take it up. Yeah. What else Baha'u'llah says? I should reach that end to say, what else does he want? Right? And do it. That's what my job is as a teacher. All right, go on.
Into full maturity and aid him to proclaim his unqualified acceptance
of whatever has been ordained by Baha'u'llah. Let him, as soon as that stage has been attained, pay attention. We do the opposite of this one, by the way, always, almost. Let him, as soon as that stage has been attained, introduce him to the body of his fellow believers. Okay?
And seek through constant fellowship and active participation in the local activities of his community to enable him to contribute his share
to the enrichment of its life.
The furtherance of its tasks, the consolidations of its interests, and the coordination of its activities with those of its sister communities. Let him not be content until he has infused
into his spiritual child so deep a longing as to impel him to arise independently in his turn, the new one, and devote his energies to the quickening of other souls and the upholding of the laws and principles laid down by his newly adopted faith. Right? So when we teach half-heartedly and bring half-educated souls into the community, they don't enrich our lives. They become burden onto themselves and others. All right? Go on. Any questions, comments, concerns so far? Whose turn is next?
With every participator in the continent-wide campaign initiated by the American believers, and particularly those engaged in pioneer work in virgin territories.
Virgin territory means there were no Baha'is before. You just got somewhere and you're the first Baha'i and you're gonna make some.
Bear in mind the necessity of keeping in close and constant touch with those responsible agencies designed to direct, coordinate, and facilitate the teaching activities of the entire community. Whether it be the body of the elected nation, representatives, or its chief auxiliary institution, the National Teaching Committee or its subsidiary organs, the regional teaching committees or the local spiritual assemblies and their respective teaching communities. They who labor for the spread of the cause of Baha'u'llah should, through constant interchange of ideas, through letters, circulars, reports, bulletins, and other means of communication with these established instruments designed for the propagation of the faith, ensure the smooth and speedy functioning of the teaching machinery of their administrative order.
Confusion, delays, duplications of efforts, dissipation of energy will thereby be completely avoided. He's giving the reasons why we should keep them informed. So basically, whenever I go for a teaching trip, I send a report to the national when I come back. This is where I went, this is what I did, was there any success, what else happened, so to speak. Before I go, I tell them too, if I'm going for a teaching trip, I tell them, I was like, well, I'm traveling such and such place. This is my plan. If you have anything else for me to do or any help I can do, let me know, so they know. This does not mean I'm asking permission, remember? Teaching is my primary duty, every one of us, and I just make decisions where I want to go and how I want to teach. Very clear the book is, yeah? But I keep everybody informed because therefore we all know what is happening and we can build on each other's efforts.
And the mighty flood of the grace of Baha'u'lláh, flowing abundantly and without the least obstruction to these essential channels, will so inundate the hearts and souls of men as to enable them to bring forth the harvest repeatedly predicted by a bird.
Very good. Who's next?
Upon every participator in this concerted effort, unprecedented in the annals of the American Baha'i community,
rests the spiritual obligation, which is all of us, by the way, now. Rests the spiritual obligation to make of the mandate of teaching, which was given to us by Baha'u'lláh himself, so widely binding upon all, the all-pervading concern of his life. Okay? That means every day you're thinking and making some plans and doing some achievement on this end. Go on.
in his daily activities and contacts, in all his journeys, whether for business or otherwise, on his holidays and outings, and on any mission he is called upon to undertake. Every bearer of the message of Baha'u'lláh should consider it not
only an obligation, but a privilege to scatter far and wide the seeds of his faith.
And to rest content in the abiding knowledge that whatever be the immediate response to that message, and however inadequate the ritual that conveyed it, the power of its author will, as he sees fit, enable those seeds to germinate, and in circumstances which no one can foresee, in which the harvest which the labor of his followers will gather. If he be a member of any spiritual assembly, let him encourage his assembly to consecrate a certain part of his time at each of its
session to the earnest and prayerful consideration of such ways and means as may foster the campaign of teaching or may furnish whatever resources are available for his purpose, extension and consolidation. Their job is not to go out as an assembly and teach. Their job is to help us, right? To help us with resources, with coordination, with whatever else help we need as individuals. And those serving on the assemblies are not just a lump sum of a thing. They themselves are 9 people as well, right? So their own individual lives, of course, are as an individual Baha'i, they do teach. But as an institution, their job is to support us, all right?
If he attends his summer school, and everyone without exception is urged to take advantage of
everyone without exception is encouraged to take advantage and what? To attend summer schools or winter schools or whatever schools are happening out there, or what we're doing here right now.
Let him consider such an occasion as a welcome and precious
opportunity.
So to enrich through lectures, study,
to enrich through lectures, study, and discussion his knowledge of the fundamentals of his faith.
As to be able to transmit with greater confidence and effectiveness the message that has been entrusted to his care. Let him, moreover, seek whenever feasible through inter-community visits to stimulate the zeal for teaching and to demonstrate to outsiders the juice and alertness of the promoters of his cause and the organic unity of its institutions.
Good. Next.
Let anyone who feels that urge among the participators in this crusade, which embraces all the races,
Races,
all the
all races, all the republics, classes, and denominations of the entire Western Hemisphere and now entire globe, of course.
Western Hemisphere arise and circumstances permitting direct, in particular, the attention and win eventually the unqualified adherence of the Negro, the Indian, the Eskimo, and Jewish races to his fate. No more laudable and meritorious services can be rendered the cause of God at the present hour than a successful effort to enhance the diversity of the members of the American Baha'i community by swelling the ranks of the faith through the enrollment of the members of these races. A blending of these highly differentiated elements of the human race harmoniously interwoven into the fabric of an all-embracing Baha'i fraternity and assimilated through the dynamic processes of a divinely appointed administrative order.
Similar,
And
all right? So after a while, we should not be poking out as individual sores in the eyes, right? What does that mean? If all of us are Baha'i first and then anything else, then we are Baha'i first, right? So if we gather here for the feast and we are 6 different colors and 12 different backgrounds, it mattereth not at all, right? You feel like you're one and the same people and family.
as we explained last time that in Haifa, there's a different country tables. This is the table for New Zealand.
Yes.
Not like this.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Administrative order and contributing each its shares to the enrichment and glory of Baha'i community life is surely an achievement.
Contemplation of which must warm and thrill every Baha'i heart. It does mine. It does.
Consider the flower of a garden. Abdul Baha has written, though differing in kind, color, form, and shape, revived by the breath of the one wind, invigorated by the rays of one sun. This diversity increaseth
their charm and addeth unto their beauty.
How unpleasing to the eye if all the flowers and plants, the leaves and the blossoms, the fruits, the branches and the trees of their garden were all the same shape and color. Diversity of
hues,
forms and shape, enrich and adorned the garden and heightened the effect thereof.
In like manner, when diverse shades of thought, temperance, all right? The freedom of thought is a main element of the faith. Shades of thought, temperance, and character are brought together under the power and influence of one created agency. The beauty and glory of human perfection will be revealed and made manifest.
not
It's pretty long paragraph. Who's Harihana, can we cut here and give it to next two, because otherwise Reshma and Solomon wouldn't be able to read and the time is ending. Yeah. Who's next?
Me, Reshma.
Go on, Han.
Not but the celestial potency of the world of God, which relate and transcend the relatives of all things, is capable of
harmonizing the divergent thoughts, sentiments, ideas, and convictions of the children of men.
I hope is the wish expressed by Abdul Baha, that ye may cause that down torrent race to become glorious and to be joined with the white race to serve the world of man with the utmost sincerity, faithfulness, love, and purity. One of the important questions he also has written, which affect the unity and the solidarity of mankind, is the fellowship and equality of the white.
Fellowship and equality, all right? What is the solidarity? What is the world looking for? That you and I love each other and can show forth that sincerity of love and friendship. It inspires the world, right? It inspires the world. If we can travel around, if I can come to India and you can go to Pakistan and we can walk the streets hand to hand, and people knowing that we were from these divergent and hateful backgrounds, can you imagine the effect of it on those who are watching? The black and white hand in hand, and I don't even see that, and you don't see my color and I don't see yours, but you are my true friend and I am yours. Can you imagine the effect that it has on ourselves and others? It's an amazing thing. So we are not asked for these things just to be in the words, but we must do it. We must develop the rectitude. All of this is fairness, by the way, right? All of this pertains to fairness, which is righteousness. If we are righteous, then the world will see it. It does see it, all right? Go on.
You must attach great importance, writes Abdul Baha in the Tablet of Divine Plan, to the Indians, the original inhabitants of America. For these souls
may be likened unto the ancient inhabitants of the Arabian Peninsula, who prior to the revelation of Muhammad were like savages.
When the Mohammedan light shone forth in their midst, they become so enkindled that they shed illumination upon the world.
Likewise, should these Indians be educated and properly guided.
There can be no doubt that through the divine teachings, they will become so enlightened that the whole earth will be illumined. If it is possible, Abdul Baha has also written, send ye teachers to other portions of Canada, likewise dispatch ye teachers to Greenland and the home of the
Eskimos. There are different type of Indians up in Alaska. These are different Native American Indian tribes.
God willing, he further has written in those same tablets, the call of the kingdom may reach the ears of the
Eskimos.
Should you display an effort so that the fragrance of God may be diffused among the Eskimos, its effect will be very great and far-reaching. Praise be the God, writes Abdul Baha, that
whatsoever hath been announced in the blessed tablets unto the Israelites, and the things explicitly written in the letters of Abdul Baha are all being fulfilled. Some have come to pass, others will be revealed in the future. Almost all native tribes do have Baha'is among them now, by the way.
The ancient beauty has in his sacred tablets explicitly written that the day of their abasement is over.
The ancient beauty has in his sacred tablets explicitly written that the day of their abasement is over. His bounty will overshadow them, and this race will day by day progress and be delivered from its age-long obscurity and degradation. Right. We have not quite done the amount of work Abdul Baha wanted, but we have some seeds everywhere. Solomon? By the way, quickly, why are we gathering these diversities? Because most of our prejudices are towards minorities, colors, and creeds and cultures. So by gathering them under one shadow in my living room, we are showing to the world we can do this. Yeah, we can do this no matter where we were from and what our background, no matter what kind of hatred we had for each other before, we can do this. We can be friends sincerely and we can love each other. That's where we need to go. That's where the rest of the world needs to go. Make sense?
Hi, Gisela, it's Ryan's turn.
Okay, go on.
Those who are holding administrative positions in their capacity as members of either the National Spiritual Assembly or of the national, the regional, or local teaching committees continually bear in mind the vital and urgent necessity of ensuring within as short a time as possible the formation in the few remaining states of the North American Republic and the provinces of the Dominion of Canada of groups, however, small and rudimentary, and of providing every facility within their powers to enable these newly formed UTIs to evolve
swiftly and along sound lines. Swiftly and along sound lines. They must be deepened, all right?
Into properly
functioning, self-sufficient, and recognized assemblies. Right? When you open a virgin territory, that's what your task is. To gather at least 9 people. And so they, as soon as they can have an assembly, then they can take over and do their own work.
With the laying of such foundations, the erection of such outposts, a work admittedly are those
yet sorely needed and highly inspiring.
The individual members of the American Baha'i community must
lend their unstinted, continual, and enthusiastic support.
While as may be the measures which their elected representatives may devise, however practical and when conceived the plans, they formulate
such measures and plans can never yield any satisfactory results unless a sufficient number of pioneers have determined to make the necessary sacrifices and to volunteer to carry their projects into effect, right? So teaching and consolidation. So if you're going and opening territories and there's no one who is residing there to deepen these people, let's say you're a travel teacher or some kind, and then you did that and 3 people became by, and then there was nobody they could go to or study together with. In a year or less than that, that whole effort gets lost, right? once you're a really deepened person, you can live alone. It's miserable, but you can live alone and still follow God's word alone. But when you're new and stuff and all that, and you're left alone, you get lost very fast, right? So teaching and consolidation, teaching and consolidation. That's why the whole institute process was brought into being 25 years ago. Some of you are half its age, because we were not, most people were very eager to go teach good, but they weren't consolidating anybody. They weren't studying, they weren't consolidating. And so all the work gets lost in a few years, all the work gets lost. And these people, once somebody loses, in a sense, interest because of your fault, because they actually got more pain from becoming this rather than actually having a light, some of them you will never be able to approach them. So you actually ended up doing harm to a soul rather than guidance. So that's why it was created as simple sort of versions of institute process. So everybody can have at least something in hand, that when you're teaching, you can actually get those people engaged with the writing. So then slowly they can get on their own feet and study. All right, go on.
To implant once and for all the banner of Baha'u'lláh in the heart of these virgin territories, to erect the structural basis of his administrative order in their cities and villages, and to establish a firm and permanent anchorage for its institutions in the minds and hearts of their inhabitants. Constitute, I firmly believe, the first and most significant step in the successful stages through which the teaching campaign inaugurated under the 7-year plan must pass. Whereas the external ornamentation of the masterful Abdal under the same plan has now entered the final phase in its development. The teaching campaign is still in its initial stages and is far from having extended effectively its ramifications to either the virgin territories or to those republics that are situated in the South American continent.
All right, can we stop here, Ryan, and let Solomon finish because our time is up. He would be left out if you don't let him read. And I might be sacrificing some older ones, but Solomon, do you want to pick up from here and finish the paragraph one?
Okay. And is far from having extended effectively its ramification to either these virgin territories or to those republics that are situated in the south, under which these preliminary establishments are to be made, are often unattractive and unfavorable. The workers who are in position to undertake such tasks limited, and the resource they can command meager
means very little, right?
Meager and inadequate, and yet, as the pen of Baha'u'lláh assured us that should a man
all alone, and I will give witness to this, should a man all alone arise in the name of Baha, glory, and put on the armor of his love, God's, him will the Almighty cause to be victorious, though the forces of earth and heaven be arrayed against him.
He has not written, by God, besides whom is none other God. Should anyone arise for the triumph of our cause, him will God render victorious. Do tens wax stronger. God will establish
tens of thousands of enemies be leagued against him. And if his love for me wax stronger,
God will establish his ascendancy over all the powers of the earth and heaven. Consider the work of former generous actions. Abdul Baha has written, during the lifetime of Jesus Christ, the believing firm souls were few and numbered, but the heavenly blessing descended so plentifully that in number of years, countless souls entered beneath the shadow of the gospel. God has said in the Quran, one grain will bring forth
One grain
7.
will bring forth 7 sheaves, and each sheaf shall contain 100 grains.
In other words, one grain will become 700, and if God so wills, he will double these also. It
Right?
has often
You plant one seed and you have corn. The one corn, how much it has, came out of one seed. That's how the work of the world and humanity goes too. If you do well, it multiplies that much.
may rather we must fix the gaze upon the favors and bounties of God. In these days, who has made of the drop a sea, and of atom a sun, let those who revolve do the first to hoist the standard of such a cause, under such conditions, and in such territories, nourish their souls with the sustaining power of these words, and putting on the armor of his love.
Putting on
A
the
love
armor of his love. That is the protection, by the way, right? The more you love him, the more you are protected through all the pains and sufferings and sorrows in the world. A love which must wax stronger. Wax means grow stronger, right?
as they preserve in their lonesome task, arise to adorn with the tale of the deeds, the most brilliant pages ever written in the country's spiritual history.
Any little ones, any children, anybody is left who has not read tonight? Some adults are left out, but good. All right. Well, we will stop here. Yeah, we have been slow a little bit last one and this one, but these were very pregnant sort of things. We will speed up a little bit next time. So last one, homework. I haven't received anybody's. I'd given you a homework this time again. Read me a paragraph and tell me what did you learn about how did you prepare yourself to be better teachers. Just a paragraph, okay? So either have it written and sent to me, or you will speak about it next class. Out of this, and according to whatever you had so far, being successful or not successful, so you always want to look at the writings from that angle, right? So if I was doing something better and good in my life, then that gets confirmed when I study. And when I study whatever I was missing or not doing, then I catch on that and I say, okay, this is because of this, right? So keep that always in mind whenever you're reading the writings and studying them. Any comments, questions, concerns, or shall we go? We are a few minutes over, sorry.
Could you just repeat the homework? What was the homework?
I'm sorry? Oh, the homework is just in one paragraph, tell me what you learned about how to become a better teacher. What do you need to do out of the Advent that Guardian has taught us how to become a better teacher? Just one paragraph. So what I'm looking for is, we already did because we already transform ourselves through rectitude of conduct, right? Which means rectitude of conduct was fairness, justice, righteousness, chastity, lack of prejudice. We have no prejudice. We achieved that. That's not what I'm looking for. We know we need to do that to even be called a teacher. We must do that. But this part, that the Guardian saying, okay, you got that. You are on the road of transformation. What do you need to study? What kind of knowledge you need to have under your hood to be a better teacher, right? Because you can't teach a subject you don't know, right? No one of you will go to school and have a dumb person standing there saying, I don't know about history, but I'm a teacher. Yeah, you will throw eggs on them. And teachers of the faith are not any different. If you don't know what we're teaching, we can't teach. All right, so that's what I'm. Anything else? All's good? All right. Sorry, I think Shimi and Vijay both didn't get to read today.
No problem.
Who else was left out? I was left out. Well, I'm never left out. Do you guys want to read? If you want to stay, you can read quickly. I don't care.
No. Rectitude of conduct, sacrifice.
All right. Wonderful. Good job. All right. Mwah. Love you guys.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.